In this video, we're going to talk about the architecture of Friedensreich Hundertwasser, who was an Austrian artist and designer, and he had a little bit of fun with his architecture in the 1950s and 60s and 70s. So I want to show you some of his buildings. Now these are apartment buildings where all of the apartments here are kind of denoted by the different colors. And you can kind of see like the lines that break these up, almost like Piet Mondrian's that we've talked about in the past. They're not quite straight, and Hundertwasser was somebody who really liked the wavy line. He liked to have things with curves and spirals, and those were some of his favorite kinds of designs to do. He was a big fan of putting in lots of nature in his buildings. You can see this apartment building has nature coming all across the top here. He has planted gardens on the roofs of this apartment building, and all of the plants that are even pouring down the sides of the buildings. We've got lots of trees planted in the foreground here. You can even see some plants kind of growing right out of the middle of the building there. All right, and then we have this building here, which again follows that idea of Hundertwasser's of the not straight lines, and even to the extreme of the curves in the sides of the buildings here. There's not a whole lot of straight lines going on in this building. In this building, can you just imagine how would you get to the top of this, and what would you find once you got there? This one is just a remarkable looking, almost like it's being lifted up into the air. Hundertwasser really wanted people to live in harmony with nature, so you'll always find lots and lots of plants coming around his buildings, kind of swerving around the top of this one. When I showed this to my son, he looked at it and he said it reminded him of cake with all the different layers coming in through here. So maybe even Freddie was trying to make us a little bit hungry in his architecture here. He felt like the people who lived in the buildings should be represented in the way the building looks at the outside. So it should reflect who is inside that building with the design work that was in it. And he said the windows should be able to dance in your buildings. And I think you can see that most effectively used in this building right here, where the windows just kind of dance up and down across the sides of the buildings. Some of them real and some of them not. And what I want to talk about in this one in particular is the use of the facade here. Now, a facade is a French word which means the front of the building. So when we're looking at a facade here, you can have a nice curvy shaped facade. This one's a little bit fancier, then it simplifies as it goes across here. And we also want to talk about organic shapes. And if you're a kindergartner with me, then you've heard the word organic before. That's the hand shape. A hand shape is an organic form. It's kind of like a blob form, an unusual, not a geometric form. So we're not talking about rectangles or squares or triangles or circles or ovals here. We're talking about forms that you might find in nature. That's a little bit more about the architecture of the artist and designer from Austria known as Friedensreich Hundertwasser.